The city rose before dawn like a crown of glass and metal. Tall buildings caught the first light and threw it back into the sky, bright and proud. Cars moved like restless ants, horns shouting without pause. Billboards showed smiling faces and promised fast money, fast respect, fast happiness. In this city, wealth spoke loudly, and pride walked with its chest out. Yet beneath the flashing lights, old values sat quietly, like elders no one visited anymore. The streets were busy, but the soul of the city slept. Those who spoke softly were rarely heard, and those who walked slowly were often pushed aside. Ebony moved through this city without noise. She woke before the sun, swept her small room, and dressed in clean but simple clothes. She walked with her head straight, not high, not low. People passed her without notice, and she did not mind. Her strength did not come from being seen. It came from waking up every day and doing what had to be done. At work, she listened more than she spoke. When others bragged, she smiled gently. When others complained, she stayed quiet. Some called her weak. Some called her boring. But Ebony carried storms inside her and did not let the wind scatter them. Her calm was not something she was born with. It was planted in her by an old woman with tired eyes and strong hands. Her grandmother raised her in a small compound far from the noise of the city. In the evenings, they sat by the doorway as the sun went down. The old woman would speak slowly, as if each word had weight. "Child," she often said, "a river that makes too much noise is usually shallow." When Ebony was angry, her grandmother would place a hand on her chest and whisper, "Wait. Time is a better speaker than the mouth." She taught her that dignity was not loud, patience was not weakness, and silence could protect a person better than shouting ever could. "The world will rush you," her grandmother said one night, "but do not rush with it. Truth walks slowly, but it always arrives." Ebony listened. She watched. She learned. She went to school while others doubted her. She studied at night while the city slept. Books became her companions, and struggle became her teacher. When success finally came, it did not announce itself. She did not change her clothes or her tone. She did not post her life for others to admire. Her achievements stayed folded inside her like a letter meant for the right time. In a world that respected only what shined and shouted, Ebony chose to remain modest. She remembered her grandmother's words and kept her victories quiet, waiting for the day when silence would speak for her. They sat together like a circle of bright feathers, each one trying to shine more than the other. Friends, cousins, old classmates, people who once shared small meals and borrowed chairs from neighbors, now measured life by labels and price tags. Wrists flashed with watches that caught the light. Phones lay on the table like trophies. Voices rose and fell as names of brands were dropped with pride. "Did you see the price of my shoes?" One of them laughed. "If it's not expensive, is it even worth wearing?" Another replied, shaking his head. They spoke of money the way elders once spoke of rain, as if it decided who would live well and who would not. In their eyes, success had only one face, and it wore gold. Whenever Ebony's name came up, their smiles thinned. She dressed simply, spoke little, and never competed. To them, that could only mean one thing. "She's still the same," a woman whispered, leaning close. "Always quiet. Always plain." "Yes," another said softly, "if she had made it, we would know." They believed silence was weakness and simplicity was failure. They mistook calm for emptiness. Without asking, without listening, they placed Ebony behind themselves in life's long race. And so, without cruelty in their voices but with judgment in their hearts, they chose her as the one who had not kept up. The restaurant they chose stood tall and proud, wrapped in glass and bright lights. Music poured from hidden speakers, loud and restless. Waiters moved quickly, dressed in sharp uniforms, eyes trained to notice wealth before character. Here, money spoke first. Manners followed later, if at all. It was a place built for showing off, not for remembering who you were. When Ebony walked in, she carried none of the noise with her. Her steps were light. Her face was calm. The music did not rush her heartbeat. The lights did not pull her eyes. She greeted them with a soft smile and took her seat without performance. For a moment, she was like cool evening air entering a crowded room. Unnoticed, uninvited, yet steady. And as laughter rose again around her, something unseen began to shift, quietly, patiently, waiting for its time. The invitation came wrapped in warmth. Smiles were wide, voices cheerful, words sweet like ripe fruit. "We're celebrating progress," one of them said, raising a glass. "All of us, together." Ebony listened quietly. Celebration sounded harmless. In African tales, gatherings were meant to bind people, not test them. She nodded and took her seat, unaware that beneath the smiles sat a silent measure, like a scale hidden under cloth. They were not there only to eat. They were there to count who had risen and who they believed had not. As the evening unfolded, respect slipped away in small pieces. It was never spoken loudly. It lived in quick glances and half-smiles. One woman's eyes paused on Ebony's simple dress a moment too long. Another leaned close and whispered, laughing softly, "She still dresses like the old days." A man chuckled. Quiet people always have something to hide, or nothing to say. Their laughter was light, but it landed heavy. Ebony heard it all. She chose silence, remembering her grandmother's words, "Not every stone deserves a reply." Menus opened like books of temptation. Fingers pointed without fear. "This one," someone said. "The most expensive." "And the imported wine," another added. "Life is short." Plates arrived heavy with food no one truly needed. Drinks flowed like a river after rain. They laughed louder with each order, as if money were a game and the table a place to prove bravery. No one asked who would pay. No one needed to, at least not yet. Then the moment came, quiet as dusk. The waiter approached, respectful, holding the bill like a sealed message. Conversation thinned. Forks slowed. One by one, voices faded. Eyes moved, slowly, carefully, until they rested on Ebony. No one spoke her name. They did not have to. The silence pressed against her chest. It was the kind of silence elders speak of, the one that comes before judgment. Ebony lifted her eyes, calm but alert. In that still moment she understood. The test had begun, and the room waited to see her break. The room pulsed with laughter at first, like a drum calling everyone to dance. Glasses clinked. Words floated like feathers in the warm air. But as the evening stretched, the lightness began to weigh. Smiles sharpened, and jokes became knives hidden beneath silk. Pride crept in where warmth had once been. Each story told of success, each laugh measured who had climbed higher. The gathering, meant to celebrate unity, began to whisper of power, wealth, and who truly belonged at the top. Beneath the chatter, an invisible scale measured each soul. The menus arrived, thick and glossy, carrying names of dishes that cost more than many earned in a week. Fingers pointed deliberately. "Bring the lobster," someone said, eyes gleaming. "The finest wine from the hills where the rivers meet the sky." Each choice was made not for hunger, but for display. Every order added weight to the invisible plan hidden behind smiles. The waiter moved with careful precision, as if he sensed the storm beneath the laughter. Plates piled high. Glasses overflowed. The table transformed into a stage for unspoken judgments. "Ah, see her," a voice said, a grin on her face. "She pretends she has no taste, but who knows? Maybe she wishes she could afford this. And still, she whispers and nods," another replied, tapping his gold ring against his glass. "Quiet people are always hiding something." Laughter followed, soft at first, then louder. Pride was praised openly, and subtle mockery dripped like honey. In the midst, Ebony listened, silent but present, feeling the weight of each word. Her calm face remained unshaken. Eyes steady, lips closed. Beneath the surface, memories stirred, nights when hunger pressed on her chest, mornings she woke before the sun to learn, the years of silent labor and careful patience. Every sacrifice she had made, every door she had waited for, every storm she had endured, all gathered like coals inside her. She did not flinch, but the fire of her life's story burned quietly, waiting for the right moment. A voice from long ago whispered inside her mind, soft as the wind through acacia leaves, "Child, patience is power, and silence can shield a heart stronger than any sword." Her grandmother's words wove through the noise. "Do not rush to prove yourself. Stand with dignity, and the world will notice when it must." Every mocking glance, every jab hidden beneath laughter, was measured against those lessons. And though the tables sought to weigh her by their shallow standards, she carried herself with the quiet strength of a river that had endured many seasons, knowing it always finds its way to the sea. The voices around her were familiar, warm once, but now sharp as thorns. Faces she had laughed with in shared struggle now measured her like grain in a basket, shaking heads lightly, eyes flicking with unspoken judgment. Each word from them was a reminder of nights when she had been small, unseen, scraping together what little she had while they had prospered, or so she had thought. The wounds of memory rose slowly, a quiet ache beneath the pulse of the evening. She remembered promises made in youthful trust, shared secrets spoken over small fires, and the laughter of simpler days now turned brittle with expectation. "Ebony," one voice said gently, almost like a breeze, "we've always been together. You know that, don't you?" Another nodded, smiling, "Yes, yes, all of us. We share everything, every success, every burden." Their words were honeyed, but their meaning clear. Togetherness meant she should act, she should contribute, she should conform to the weight of their plan. Unity became a tool, and the knife was hidden beneath polite concern. Responsibility, carefully disguised as friendship, slid quietly toward her. She felt the shift without a word being spoken, a subtle hand pushing, an expectation settling like a stone in her chest. Eyes moved around the table like whispers. A glance here, a pause there. Laughter softened, forks slowed, and the room seemed to hold its breath. No one said it, but everyone felt it, the weight of their attention, the silent urging, the demand to respond to their judgment. It was louder than any voice. The air itself pressed her shoulders down, measuring her patience, her composure, her endurance. Then came the hand closest to her, the voice she had trusted above all others. "Ebony, surely you'll cover this?" it said, light, almost teasing, but carrying a weight that shook her more than any accusation. Every other glance in the room turned toward her, following the push of that familiar voice. She knew the history of this hand, how it had once lifted her from small despair, how it had once promised loyalty. And now, it demanded compliance. Her chest tightened as the betrayal pressed like a drumbeat in her heart. Pain cut sharper than fear of money. The wound was deeper than the bill before her. Trust, she realized, had been the thing they had measured her against. Not courage, not patience, not endurance, but the quiet faith she had placed in someone who now joined the chorus of judgment. The betrayal stung, invisible but present, stronger than any of the luxury surrounding her. Her silence did not waver, but inside, memories of shared hardship rose with the sharpness of fire, reminding her that some debts are never counted in coins, and some wounds never heal with money. A memory stirred deep inside her, soft at first, like wind through the leaves of the baobab tree. Her grandmother's voice rose clearly in her mind, "The goat mocked today may own the field tomorrow." The words were not just a saying, they were a shield, a talisman against the weight pressing her chest. She drew in a quiet breath and let it settle her. Those who had laughed, judged, and whispered had not yet seen the power of a patient heart. Across the room, the world began to notice. Waiters paused mid-step, eyes flicking toward the table with something like curiosity, something like caution. Guests nearby shifted their chairs and lowered voices, sensing the tension ripple outward. What had begun as private judgment now stretched to the edges of the restaurant. Every glance at Ebony carried weight. Her stillness pulled the focus like a magnet, and the eyes of strangers joined the silent questioning of her worth. The laughter and chatter dimmed, replaced by whispers of uncertainty. Pressure came not just from strangers, but from culture itself. She was a woman in a world that expected quiet endurance. Her strength had been tested all her life, to swallow insults, to ignore envy, to carry shame without raising a hand. "This is your lot," her grandmother had said once, "to walk with dignity while the world measures you in loudness and labels." Every stare, every subtle tilt of a head reminded her of that expectation. She felt the invisible weight of centuries of judgment pressing down, yet she remained seated, composed. And yet the cruelty was not blunt. It was cloaked in smiles, in playful tones, in laughter meant to disarm. "Oh, Ebony," one said, tilting her head, "you'll have to catch up one day, won't you?" Another laughed softly, "We'll wait for you to join the grown-ups." Their words carried sting beneath the silk. The room treated the mockery as jest, as harmless teasing, making resistance seem improper, even rude. And all the while, Ebony's lips stayed calm, eyes steady, holding the quiet dignity her grandmother had taught her. Then it came, The bill. Placed on the table with care, yet heavy with meaning. Its weight was not just in numbers, but in expectation. It landed like the drum of an elder calling the village to judgment. Eyes flicked from the paper to her, voices trailing off into silence. She could feel every glance like a needle, every expectation a finger pointing at her. The moment demanded action, or submission, and the choice was hers alone. Silence fell then, thick as incense smoke before a sacred ritual. Conversations stopped mid-laugh. Forks hovered above plates. Even the music seemed to pause, held in respect or in anticipation. The room collectively held its breath, waiting for Ebony to break, waiting for the quiet one to crumble under their calculated pressure. And yet, she remained steady, as if the rhythm of her grandmother's words ran through her veins, binding patience and power into a single unshakable heart. Ebony lifted her eyes slowly, and the quiet that had held the room like a heavy cloth began to shift. Her voice came, calm and clear, carrying no anger, no rush, only truth. "You speak as if I am nothing," she said, steady. "But I have walked many paths in silence. I have labored, I have waited, I have endured what you cannot see. Do not mistake quiet for weakness." Her words landed like stones in water, sending ripples through the table. The laughter stopped, the glances faltered. Even the air seemed to still, waiting for the next strike of honesty. "You see only what shines and shouts," she continued, "but the years of hunger, labor, and patience forge a strength you will never know. My voice is shaped not by privilege, but by survival." A pause, then she spoke again, revealing the truth that had been hers alone. "My modesty is my choice. I choose restraint. I choose dignity. I choose to let others measure their worth by gold and garments while I measure mine by deeds and legacy." Eyes widened around the table as she unfolded the weight of her life. "I own land, businesses, influence built on labor, ethics, and the inheritance of ancestors who worked the soil before us. You see a quiet woman. I am a keeper of generations, a builder of futures." Whispers moved like shadows when she continued. "Even this house of luxury, this restaurant where you sought to humble me, it rests on ground my family nurtured, on investments tied to our community, our labor, and our trust. What you see as opulence is rooted in the same soil that raised me." She lifted a hand, and a waiter brought a small ledger. "Look here," she said. "Numbers do not lie. Debts unpaid, names neglected, dishonor hidden in plain sight. You mocked and measured me by appearances, yet it is your own accounts that reveal who carries shame." Silence spread across the table, deeper than before, as eyes that once judged now met truths they had never expected. The quiet woman had spoken, and in her calm, patience, and integrity, she had shattered illusions of pride and revealed the hidden strength that had been hers all along. The weight of the truth settled over the table like the evening sun over a quiet village. The laughter that had once been loud and careless now faltered, shrinking beneath the force of revelation. Arrogance, so carefully constructed through gestures and words, began to crumble. Each boast, each attempt to shame, had bounced back upon those who uttered it. The very pride that had lifted their heads high now sagged under the quiet authority of a woman they had underestimated. Smiles faded first, slipping like shadows at dusk. Eyes that once sparkled with superiority now darted uneasily, searching for excuses that did not exist. Confidence, once so brazen, drained from their shoulders as though a river had receded, leaving their empty postures exposed. Even the closest friends, who had conspired with laughter, could not hide the shame creeping over their faces. Silence, the same silence they had hoped would humiliate Ebony, became a weight pressing upon them. Forks hovered over plates. Breaths were caught mid-chatter. Each glance toward her reminded them of their misjudgment, their assumptions. The room itself seemed to lean in, watching the shift. What had been a trap for her now served as a mirror, reflecting their arrogance, greed, and the consequences of mockery. Ebony's voice rose, steady, carrying an echo of the wisdom that had guided generations before her. "A tree that bows in humility feeds the roots of tomorrow. Greed and pride feed only shame, and respect is not a gift to be taken lightly." Her words, ancestral and firm, pressed into the hearts of those who had sought to diminish her. The proverb, simple yet profound, sealed the moment, a lesson from elders speaking through the calm of a single woman who had endured. When the bill, heavy and gleaming, was presented, she spoke again, softly, but with the clarity of a river cutting through stone. "I will not pay for your excess," she said. "Dignity is not measured in plates or gold, and respect cannot be bought with coin." Her calm refusal drew no protest, for the weight of truth had already claimed the room. She gathered only what was hers, placing the sum for her meal before the server. The simplicity of the act was a statement louder than any argument. Boundaries defined, justice served, and self-respect preserved. Every eye that had once judged now understood that true power is measured not in wealth or noise, but in patience, dignity, and the courage to stand quietly, unshaken, while the world reveals its own folly. A stunned hush fell over the table, thicker than any cloth that could cover it. Faces once brimming with arrogance now froze, eyes wide with disbelief. The laughter that had bounced carelessly off the walls had vanished, replaced by a tremor of regret. Some fingers twitched nervously over glasses, as if the simple act of touching them could undo the truth just spoken. Fear settled quietly, creeping into every chest, for the quiet woman they had sought to shame had revealed a power they could neither challenge nor ignore. They shifted uneasily, sensing that fate had begun to work its own reckoning. The lesson was clear: pride worn like a crown could crumble at the sight of dignity. Ebony's restraint, cultivated through patience and hardship, had turned the table into a mirror. Those who mocked quietly now understood that life has a way of humbling arrogance, honoring those who endure silently, and revealing the folly of those who judge too soon. The bill, once merely a token of indulgence, now symbolized more than money. It weighed heavy on the group, not with numbers but with consequence. Faces that had been careless with words now carried shame that no laughter could mask. The cost of pride was clear: embarrassment replacing enjoyment, realization replacing mockery. Each mouth that had once opened to joke now found itself sealed, swallowed by the gravity of truth. Blame spread like fire in dry grass. Friends who had smiled together now exchanged sharp, accusing glances. Bonds forged in laughter weakened, strained by the sting of public humiliation. Unity dissolved as each person sought to place the burden on another, to escape the weight of exposure. Even those who had thought themselves clever felt the tension crack beneath their feet. Word of the event did not stay confined to the walls of the restaurant. Whispers slipped out into the streets, carried from hand to hand, home to home. "Did you hear?" they said. "The quiet one. She humbled them all." Judgment followed swiftly, and respect for Ebony grew with each retelling. The story spread like fire in the savannah, a reminder that silence and dignity often carry power louder than wealth or laughter, and that those who mock the quiet may find themselves remembered not for triumph, but for folly. The village square was quiet, yet alive with the weight of conversation. Elders, faces lined with wisdom and eyes that had seen generations rise and fall, gathered beneath the baobab trees. They spoke softly, their words deliberate, like the careful steps of hunters in the early morning. "The proud one who lifts another to shame invites the same upon themselves," said one, tapping the ground with a gnarled staff. Another nodded, recalling the proverb that had guided her own youth: "Even the tallest tree bends when the wind is wise." They turned the night's events into lessons, weaving stories of patience, humility, and respect, ensuring the community would remember the cost of arrogance and the honor of restraint. Ebony walked through the evening streets, her posture calm, her steps steady. She felt no triumph in the embarrassment of others, no glee in the revelation of truths that had unsettled the table. Her heart, guided by the quiet teachings of her grandmother, held peace above revenge. The city lights flickered against the walls of glass, yet her mind remained anchored to the lesson: dignity does not roar, and strength does not boast. "Let their hearts wrestle with what they have sown," she murmured softly, a whisper to herself more than anyone else. Sitting by the fire of her family compound, she traced the lines of memory. Her grandmother's voice, rich with the cadence of elders before her, came alive in her mind: "Silence is a shield, and patience the spear of the wise." She remembered the mornings of careful work, the nights of listening more than speaking, the days when restraint had seemed lonely but had built the foundation for her power. In that quiet reflection, she honored her grandmother, carrying her guidance forward without spectacle, letting wisdom and restraint shine where arrogance had failed. As dusk approached, figures appeared at the gate, heads bowed and shoulders heavy. "Ebony," one spoke, voice low and trembling, "we have wronged and come seeking mercy. Grant us a chance to restore what we have tarnished." Others followed, hesitant, their pride softened by the weight of shame. She listened without haste, offering words measured with kindness. Her mercy was not weakness. It was the power of someone who understood the depth of consequence and the importance of giving others the opportunity to mend their hearts. Yet not all approached with humility. A few, faces hardened, walked past without pause, letting the sting of embarrassment twist into bitterness. Their laughter had faded, but no reflection followed. Pride and stubbornness held fast. Ebony did not linger on them, for their hearts were not yet ready to learn the lesson of restraint. She understood that shame without understanding could only breed more pride, and she turned her attention to what could grow, not what would remain barren. As the sun dipped low, painting the horizon with gold and amber, Ebony stepped into the familiar gates of her family compound. The walls, weathered yet steadfast, embraced her like an old friend. The garden carried the scent of earth and rain, a reminder of roots that nourished and held her. She breathed deeply, letting the ancestral space fill her chest with calm. In the fading light, she felt the circle of her life, past, present, and future, woven together by strength, humility, and quiet triumph. Here, among the stones and trees that had seen generations, she found her home, her peace, and her place in the story of her people. The village woke to the gentle rhythm of morning, the sun spilling gold across clay rooftops and dusty streets. Ebony moved among her people with quiet purpose, carrying baskets of grains, bundles of clothes, and notes of support. No fanfare, no announcement of names, only the careful, steady giving of what was needed. A child's torn shoes were mended, a teacher's school supplies quietly replaced, a family's sick mother received medicine before anyone knew she was even ill. Her hands worked, her eyes kind but unassuming, as if the rhythm of giving was its own song, one that spoke louder than the glitter of gold or the shine of pride. Whispers began to thread through the market and the village square. "Have you seen Ebony today?" someone asked. "She carries more than she shows, and yet she asks nothing in return." Slowly, a shared understanding spread. Wealth is measured not by the cloth you wear or the feast you throw, but by the hearts you touch and the respect you carry. Humility weighed heavier than noise, character eclipsed display, and the community felt the quiet truth settle among them like the first rain after a long dry season. In the evening, drums called across the compound, their deep beat echoing from the hills. Elders gathered, children hushed, and even the wind seemed to pause. The words of the old proverb rolled from lips to hearts: "The drum that makes the loudest noise is often empty inside." And in that rhythm, in the weight of silence that carried wisdom more than spectacle ever could, the story of Ebony was sealed. Her deeds, unshouted yet remembered, had taught the final lesson: true power whispers, and humility is a drum whose sound resonates beyond the eyes and ears of the world.